Hey everyone, today we're diving into the fascinating story of the ancient city of Babylon, one of the greatest cities of early antiquity. So without further delay, let's get started. Located about 90 kilometers southwest of modern-day Baghdad, along the banks of the Euphrates River, lie the ruins of this incredible city. Babylon appears not only in the stories of the Old Testament, but also in the works of ancient historians like Herodotus, the famous Greek writer and traveler. You've probably heard of Babylon, but you might not know just how significant it really was, so let's go back to the very beginning. The name Babylon is actually the Greek version of the city's name. The original name was Babalu, which means Gate of the Gods. The Babylonians themselves called it that, and it was especially important to their patron deity, Marduk. Babylon's origins go back even before the reign of Sargon of Akkad, ruled around 2334 to 2279 BCE, a legendary king who is sometimes credited with founding the city. But this is probably more myth than fact. Sargon became such a legendary figure that later generations often attached his name to the origins of cities and great accomplishments, even when there was no solid evidence. Saying, "Sargon founded our city," was a great way to give it prestige, whether it was true or not. During Sargon's time, Babylon was likely just a small port town on the Euphrates, and unfortunately, we haven't recovered many artifacts from that period because the layers have been buried under centuries of silt and new construction. Babylon really began to rise in importance after the arrival of the Amorites, a people from the west, sometime after the fall of the third dynasty of Ur. It was under Hammurabi, who ruled from 1792 to 1750 BCE, that Babylon became one of the most powerful and wealthy cities in the ancient world. Hammurabi, taking the throne after his father's abdication, expanded Babylon through military conquest and used the wealth he gained to improve the city, building temples, infrastructure, irrigation systems, and defensive walls. But Hammurabi's most lasting legacy is the Code of Hammurabi, one of the world's first written law codes. By 1755 BCE, Hammurabi had united most of Mesopotamia under Babylonian control, making it the most livable and advanced city of its time. As with all empires, Hammurabi's fell after his death. Babylon declined until 1595 BCE, when it was sacked by the Hittites from Anatolia. The Hittites didn't rule for long. They were soon replaced by the Kassites, a people from the Zagros Mountains. The Kassites ruled Babylon for about 400 years. Though not much is known about them until quite 1100 BCE, when the Assyrians entered the scene. Although the Babylonians and Assyrians shared many cultural similarities, the Babylonians resented Assyrian dominance. This came to a head under the Assyrian king Sennacherib, 705 to 681 BCE, who brutally destroyed Babylon and massacred much of its population as a warning to other rebellious cities. This excessive cruelty, however, backfired. Sennacherib was later assassinated by his own sons, many believe as punishment for this impious act. His successor, Esarhaddon, took a completely different approach. He began restoring Babylon, even living there part of the year. Despite this, Babylon's rebellious spirit remained strong. In 652 BCE, the Babylonians rose up again under King Ashurbanipal, who crushed the revolt but interestingly did not destroy the city. His scribes claimed the revolt was the work of evil spirits, not the Babylonians themselves, likely to avoid the same fate as Sennacherib. After Ashurbanipal, Assyrian power crumbled. The Babylonians, alongside the Medes and other allies, finally overthrew the Assyrian Empire and destroyed its capital, Nineveh. This marked the rise of the Neo-Babylonian Empire, founded by Nabopolassar, a Chaldean leader. His son, Nebuchadnezzar II, 604 to 561 BCE, would become Babylon's greatest ruler after Hammurabi. Nebuchadnezzar expanded and beautified the city, building monumental structures like the Ishtar Gate and, according to legend, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, though no solid evidence of the gardens has been found. The Ishtar Gate, however, was real, and parts of it have been reconstructed in the Pergamon Museum in Berlin. Yet, behind Babylon's grandeur was a harsh reality. It was built in part by forced labor, often using slaves captured in war or those who had fallen into debt. After Nebuchadnezzar's death, Babylon began to decline. A man named Nabonidus eventually seized power, but he made a critical mistake. He neglected the worship of Marduk, focusing instead on the moon god Sin. He even left the city for years, placing his son Belshazzar in charge. When Cyrus the Great of Persia defeated Babylon in 539 BCE, the city fell without much resistance. Cyrus presented himself as a liberator and a servant of Marduk. He restored temples, performed religious ceremonies properly, and allowed the people to live in peace. He even freed the Jews from Babylonian captivity, earning him a favorable place in many historical accounts. Under Persian rule, Babylon remained a major cosmopolitan center, something like a mix of New York, London, and Paris today, but with ancient prestige and influence. In 331 BCE, Alexander the Great entered Babylon and took control peacefully, much like Cyrus had. He intended to make Babylon his eastern capital, but died there in 323 BCE, possibly after a drinking party. After his death, Babylon's population gradually moved to Seleucia, the new capital of the Seleucid Empire, and the city slowly declined. By the time the Parthians took over the region, Babylon was largely abandoned. It saw a minor revival during the Sasanian Empire, but never returned to its former glory. Following the Arab-Muslim conquest, Babylon faded into obscurity, buried by time. It wasn't until European explorers in the 17th and 18th centuries began digging in the region that Babylon's story re-emerged. Major excavations led by German archaeologist Robert Koldewey from 1899 to 1917 uncovered much of what we know today. And that's the incredible story of Babylon, how it rose, fell, and was rediscovered. Thanks for stopping by. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe for more stories from history. See you next time.